Thanks for joining this new episode of the Holistic Selling Podcast. I'm thrilled today to welcome Sreedhar Peddineni to the show. Sreedhar is a serial SaaS entrepreneur and technology leader, best known for co-founding three category-defining companies: Planful, formerly known as Host Analytics, Gainsight, and GTM Buddy. Sreedhar helped pioneer cloud-based financial planning software with Host Analytics, then played a key role in creating and scaling the customer success category through Gainsight, where he is often credited with helping popularize the customer success manager role. Today, Sreedhar serves as CEO and co-founder of GTM Buddy, an AI-powered revenue enablement platform focused on improving sales execution and revenue outcomes. Sreedhar's philosophy centers on ecosystem-driven growth, customer-centric innovation, and leveraging AI to help revenue teams become more effective, personalized, and outcome-focused. So you can see why today's conversation aligns very well with the holistic selling framework. Sreedhar, welcome. What would you like to add?
Thank you so much for the kind words. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You've achieved a lot in your career and very much looking forward to talking to you about your career-long achievements with a focus on GTM Buddy. What I love about your LinkedIn profile is that you stated you enjoyed the opportunity to work with great people to help them grow, but also return the favor by sharing the insights that you've learned along the years. And today, that's exactly the purpose of the conversation we'll have. As you know by now, the goal of holistic selling is to empower your frontline to deliver extraordinary experiences and outcomes to your customers and prospects at every touch point. Your entire business needs to be engineered backwards from these moments of truth, from your culture and your strategies to your tactics and your day-to-day operational processes. And what Sreedhar has built with GTM Buddy is very much aligned with this notion of enabling and empowering the frontline to deliver extraordinary experiences and outcomes to customers and prospects. So with that, let's dig in. Sreedhar, you founded this company called GTM Buddy. You call it the revenue activation engine for the agentic sales era. Could you explain what you mean by revenue activation? And could you also explain for the audience today what problems it specifically solves for sales and go-to-market teams?
Awesome. So revenue activation is about how do we equip the frontline reps and customer success managers with the right information at the right time when they need it the most, delivered in their workflow. That's broadly the framework. So when you talk about right information, what is right information? That becomes a question. Now, the information that is contextually relevant to the other person that I am talking to, other human that I am talking to, who happens to be a buyer or a customer, and what does that person care about, and how do you articulate your value proposition in addressing the pain points that that person has and helping them through the purchase journey or realizing the value from your services. So it's less feature function focused. It's about having that value driven conversations. Revenue activation is a framework that makes it happen by extracting out from your content repositories and sales process documentation, sales plays, and surface just the right subset that the reps need to know when they're having that conversation. And under the hood, the revenue activation is built on top of a revenue enablement platform that includes how do you onboard your team. So we have an onboarding platform that's for ramping people, a coaching platform, and content management system. And revenue activation is a layer built on top of it.
It's very well said. Obviously, you need to have the foundation of all the content, all the sales plays, all the outcome-driven conversations that you want to engineer with the customers and the prospects as the baseline. The key, though, with GTM Buddy is this ability to actually deliver the content contextually in a personalized fashion at the moment of truth to simplify the life of the sales reps, the account managers, the customer success managers to create value for the customers at that moment of truth. As you pointed out in your website, selling has changed. Enablement systems haven't. And in today's market, those moments of truth are won or lost in fast, high-stakes environment where conversation can shift at a moment notice, and most enablement platforms still were built for a slower era. And you bringing sales enablement into the new era of being able to provide the sales reps and the account managers and customer success managers with the information they need at the moment of truth to make a difference. Now, you break it down into 5 different levers, each of which addressing very specific failure points or pain points. Would you care taking us through those 5 levers?
Absolutely. So before I get into that, the traditional enablement, the way the enablement is looked at many companies, is the practice of I'm creating learning courses for onboarding new teammates that we are hiring. I'm hiring sellers. How do I train them? That has been the focus. That's LMS. After they are trained, then I need to give them access to content such as the sales decks and battle cards and case studies and stuff like that. For that, I need a content system. So the enablement industry today was built in those foundations of learning systems and content systems. And the focus was not as much in terms of how do you get that to activate when the sellers are actually going through that motion of selling and having those conversations. So with that said, there are 5 fundamental building blocks that go into building a revenue engine. The first one is, how do I ramp? This has been a perennial problem. How do I accelerate the ramp? How do I get my people to start producing outcomes sooner than later? Now, a lot of times this was done through courses that have been created by L&D professionals, and look at your company 101, product 101, all the training that goes with it. The common complaint around the practice has been that, okay, it becomes stale. People forget the training. Stale as in it does take a lot of effort. It used to take a lot of effort in pre-AI era to stand up these courses. And how frequently can I update it? When my product and the market is changing on a week-to-week basis in the AI era, we need capabilities to ensure that the learning content that I'm providing is constantly updated. So that's where the AI content creation, which can go in and can look up a lot of the content that you can throw at it and can convert that into a very well-designed learning program. All of this can be done in minutes as opposed to the weeks and months it used to take. So that's around the ramp side of the world. Now, after the people are ramped, then you look at, okay, we are giving them access to content. The premise is that I'm creating a content library, could be in SharePoint, could be in Google Drive, could be on any content management system. And I would say, hey, you're looking for a case study, go search there and you'll find the content and you start using it. But the problem is a lot of people don't do it. And because people don't go looking for the content proactively, the content becomes stale. So it becomes a vicious circle where people don't manage the content because nobody is using it. It becomes a vicious circle. So what we need to do is identifying that right content. I might have 5,000 documents in my content repository, but in a given sales conversation, there is just that 1 or 2 case studies that are relevant for the prospect that I'm talking to, that talks about the pain points that they have, that we address, right? How do you surface automatically leveraging AI? How do you surface that content in the context of that conversation? I'm getting into a discovery call. We train people on how do you qualify prospects that are coming in to the pipeline. Now, this is part of training, but how do you ensure that that sales play that I was supposed to execute on the discovery call, how do you surface that sales play and present it to the rep? Hey, you're getting into this discovery call in this vertical and you're talking to a product marketing persona. Here are the pain points that this persona has, and here are the questions that you would want to validate. If you're talking to an enablement persona, the questions are going to be different. If you're talking to a sales leader, the questions are going to be different. Each persona is different. Now, do we expect the reps to keep all of that information and remember it and execute? That was the old way of doing it. In the new way of doing it, we deliver that information. This is what we call inflow activation and content velocity. Delivering the content in the workflow is what we do. That includes sales plays, it's content. And not only that, what happens after the conversation? These days, all of us record the calls. We have call transcripts. It's really useful. But if you were to ask a sales leader, how many calls do you listen in a day? That's anybody's guess. You're recording hundreds of calls in a given day. Nobody has the time to listen to all the calls. A lot of times it's reactive. I'm looking at this deal in particular. Then I go into probably maybe read the call summaries. That's all I do. Now, how can I take the calls that have happened and leverage that to continually score your deals. We are getting into the two areas here. How do you score the deals? What deal is real and what isn't? And what needs to be done to make it a real deal? So there are some conversations that I was on, for example. The prospect just says that the mandate from my leadership is AI transformation. Every function is being asked in terms of how are you leveraging AI. Okay, I'm figuring out, I'm talking to all the vendors to understand what I can do. There is no defined budget line item.
Correct.
There's a lot of education that is required to frame the conversation even. You need to show them the pathways. And that pathway may include GTM Buddy, may include Claude. There's a build versus buy conversation that we brought in early in that conversation. So the question is about showing the path in terms of what are the possibilities that that individual could be looking at in delivering on the leadership's ask. Now, you're talking about creation of a business case in terms of here is what you can do in terms of leveraging AI in your function and up level your organization's performance. Now, you're starting to build trust at one level. And along the way, we also plant the seeds in terms of here is what you can do with GTM Buddy. Here is why it makes simpler compared to doing it all by yourself using Claude vibe coding and all of that. And also you start looking at the same calls and start identifying competency gaps. In terms of how the reps we have trained them. And now they're in the field selling. Is the messaging being delivered the way we hope that it would be delivered? Or they're handling objections well, right? So that's a lot of times when you go into manager coaching, this is a common complaint that a manager, you have been a sales leader, I'm preaching to the choir here. A lot of times managers are people who have been top sellers. A top seller gets promoted to a manager. And a lot of times their one-on-ones tend to be more deal focused in terms of, hey, you're working on these deals, what's going on? And stuff like that. But not much is invested in terms of up-leveling the competency of the individual that's reporting into me. Coaching is critical. Like you said, you talk about inverted pyramid in holistic selling framework, where you put the frontline employees at the top. If you're enabling them, if you're equipping them with competencies, your organizational performance will improve substantially, right? So a key part of that is going to be how do you improve coaching? How do you make it more data driven? If as a manager, if I'm just focusing on the deals, which are outcomes for this current quarter, these are the deals that I'm chasing, then where is the investment about improving the human competencies of my team? So this is another area where with AI and with GTM Buddy, we could do an objective competency gap analysis and inform the manager in terms of here are the areas of strengths for this person that you're talking to. Here are the areas where the person could do better. Can you coach to that? And each person is different. So it's not a one shoe fits all solution, but each person's calls are analyzed, competencies are assessed, and identify the coaching moments for the reps. So those are the 5 levers that we talk about.
I think it's very, very complete. And having now looked at holistic selling for about a year, I have to say the one capability that has risen through my conversations over the last few months as being massively impacted by AI is the go-to-market field. The go-to-market area has been the subject of a massive investment in AI to be able to develop the capability to inform the sales rep or the account manager at the moment of truth of how to conduct a conversation with a prospect or a customer based on what they know about that persona, their company, their business imperatives, and be able to enable them at that moment of truth to have the most productive, successful conversation and deliver the right outcome, the right experience to customers and prospects. I've seen AI now coming up and GTM Buddy being a great example, with an incredibly game-changing capability of informing the sales rep and the account manager about what is it that they need to share with the customer and what questions they need to ask to drive value in that conversation every single time. So I think this is an area that will see a tremendous amount of change over the next few months and years.
Totally.
So you're at the right place at the right time, and congratulations to you for having the pre-science, if you will, to actually create a company in this field at the very moment where I think we're going to see a significant amount of change in the way that sales teams are being enabled. It's become so big so quickly that Gartner has now even created a category called revenue enablement platforms. And you're squarely with GTM Buddy into that category of revenue enablement platforms. There's a lot of other companies that are investing heavily in this field, how would you say you would differentiate GTM Buddy from the other category leaders that we've seen in this particular area of revenue enablement?
This category is going into a little bit of history. A lot of categories are getting disrupted right now, and categories are being redrawn. So the question to consider is that revenue enablement was born in a time when Google Drive itself was not mature enough. There was no Notion at the time. And SharePoint was probably the only content repository that existed. And companies that were born in that era saying that you should have a well-organized content library. You should have an LMS system where some specific features for the sales team and so on. So a content management system is what I sell, what I build and sell. And that was a real business problem. Kudos to them for identifying that problem back in 2011. So the market leaders in this category are Seismic, HighSpot, Showpad, Big Tin Can. These are the companies that were born in that era for solving the problem of organizing content. Now, is that the problem that the companies are willing to pay now? The question that customers ask today is that now Google Drive coupled with Gemini, is it not going to give me what I need? Why should I spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on this software? And in an era where I can create my custom GPTs and stuff like that, and I can ask questions and I get answers, what's the amount of investment? What's the right amount of investment in training that I need to do? Should I purchase an LMS system, or should I give everybody access to Claude and ChatGPT, if you will? So the lines are getting redrawn. So Gartner will follow in terms of as their future editions of revenue enablement. Is it going to be called revenue enablement to begin with? That's another fundamental question.
I agree.
So if I look at enablement, I define enablement as, there's a content library and I've got a learning courses, LMS platform. That's enablement. That's like too short-sighted for today's era.
I totally agree.
And the same challenge, this as well as I do, every category is getting challenged in terms of, what are the possibilities with AI? As a company, are we AI native? Is our product AI native? Once you build a massive ocean liner, if you will, some of these large companies, it's very hard for them to steer the course, change the directions quickly. It's not a speedboat anymore, right? So that opens up immense opportunity for innovators like us and others in every category. This is a time for disruption of multiple categories. The category lines are getting redrawn as we speak.
You're exactly right. Now is the time to be a disruptor because AI gives you that opportunity. And one of the objectives of holistic selling, having observed the life of sales executives and account managers myself for many years, is to remove complexity from the organization, make it simpler and more productive for them to do their jobs, because everybody wakes up in the morning wanting to do their jobs the right way. But it's just hard to do because of the constraints and frictions and the complexity of getting the information you need. And the old way of doing things, it might take you 2-3 hours to read the 10K, the 10Q, figure out who you're going to talk to, look at their LinkedIn profile, figuring out how the sales plays need to be combined, what you learn from the organization, etc. That's the old way. Now, the new way is obviously all that information gets served up to you at that moment of truth. Could you take us through that experience? I'm a sales rep. I'm going to talk to an executive in a company tomorrow. What do I do in GTM Buddy to be ready for that call and make sure that call ends in a positive outcome?
Sure. So I'm a rep getting on a call with an executive at a company. First things that I'm supposed to do, I need to learn some things about the company. What does the company do? And what are the key factors that I'm looking for in the context of what I'm trying to sell to them? If I'm selling a HR tech product, for example, how many employees do they have? If I'm selling a financial planning solution, do they have multiple subsidiaries? Where planning and consolidation, do they have global operations? That talks about the complexity of the planning process, for example. I need to do that account research. Then two, I need to research the person. Who am I talking to? Now, these two, they take some amount of time. Some people do that research. Some people just get into the call and wing it. Now, with AI, with GTM Buddy, you could create an agent that does the research for you, summarizes that information, delivers it to you on your calendar. So within calendar, you have a little button that we add called meeting prep. And if you click on that just before joining a call like this, it tells you what you need to know about that account and that person. That's one. Two, that person, based on the person's position title, we infer, and from the account and the person's position title, we infer what is the buyer persona. And for the persona, what are the pain points for this persona that you should be talking about? That gets delivered as part of the meeting prep. Hey, this is what you need to know about the company and about the person. And here is the personal information that you need to know. Out of the 200 slide deck that you have about buyer personas, here are the 2 slides that map back to this person that you're talking to. And here are the pain points that we know of. You would want to talk about them to see if they resonate. Come across as a trusted advisor because I've done my research and I'm having a conversation with a person and talking their language. And the fourth piece of information that we deliver is about the sales play. You're getting into a discovery call. And here is what a great discovery call looks like. Here is what you're supposed to do in your medpick. Here are the 2 letters that you would want to uncover in the first call. And here are the questions that you would want to be asking to unpack your sales process. So this is all pre-meeting. And as you are going through the call, the prospect asks you a question and you need to get an answer. So you may not know the answer given the complexity of what you're selling. And you ask a question with Ask Buddy, which is basically a Q&A agent, like a chat GPT built for your company.
So during the call, you were able to interact with GTM Buddy to get the additional information you need to be able to answer any objections or questions from the customer or the prospect.
So basically, it's a bot. You could ask a question, you could type in a question, and we're not listening to the voice and automatically surfacing that in the call. Not yet, anyway. But you could have a bot open where they're asking that question and getting the answer. Then moving on to the next steps. After the call is done, let's say we have qualified the prospect, and we said that we're going to send you a link to a digital sales room with information that you have requested. Information about our company and some relevant case studies, some products of interest, product videos that are of interest to you. I want to create a digital sales room. Now, that digital sales room can automatically be created by GTM Buddy's AI creation of DSRs, which picks up the relevant content based on the conversation and creates that DSR and sends out the link. Then you start looking at that same call. You look at what was your process compliance on that, more from enablement and sales managers, and even for the self-improvement. How did I do on the call? The calls get scored based on your own rubrics and leveraging a configurable skills framework and so on. But what are the areas that I've done well? What can I do better?
So the sales reps themselves can see how GTM Buddy rated them based on the conversation and provides them with a list of areas for improvement that they can then learn from at that moment. The closer to the call you get the feedback, the more effective the feedback is. They can get that feedback right away and they can learn from it.
Yep, absolutely. And within that, a lot of times, AI generated feedback is looked at with skepticism. Can go wrong, and it does go wrong. So that's where we can't have AI that in a manner that's one shoe fits all. I have my own system prompts. My AI does the scoring a particular way. So it's extremely important for training the AI, informing the AI that here are the skills that I'm looking for. On the seller skills, I'm looking at call opening. In the call opening, did I build the repo? And how well was my repo building? Did I demonstrate that I actively listened through the call? You can look for specifics like parroting, paraphrasing, asking layered questions, and so on. And then you can look at, did I close the call with the next step? I'm just taking some examples here. And the questions that you would ask need to be customized for your company. So all of that can be codified by a business user. You don't need an AI engineer for doing any of that. Now, going further on that, as the deal is progressing, could leverage in terms of, okay, you can start looking at the deal health. I talked about MEDIC or MEDPIC, the sales methodology that you use. And how do you score the deal based on this sales process that I've defined for the company? So you're talking about activating every piece of information, like the number of conversations. Like we have lots of data which talks about the buyer is 80% plus through the buying journey before they ever speak to a rep. I only get a few calls with the prospect. They've already made up their mind in some ways. And I need to use every call very meaningfully to move the buyer forward in the buying journey. So everything counts. The quality of questions that I ask, the information that I'm uncovering, the information that I'm sharing, everything counts.
So you're able to actually use GTM Buddy as the deal progresses to ensure that at every step you provide the sales rep with the information he or she needs to move the deal forward.
Yeah. So you asked a question around the competition, right? A competition was born in an era when my job is to organize content. I'm creating a content management system. I'm creating a learning management system. Is a different way of thinking about the problems that you're trying to solve for. And revenue enablement for the longest time has been about that, CMS and LMS, right? But when you start building a company with the framework of, okay, the purpose, the why we're building GTM Buddy is around activating all the enablement work that I'm doing and activating that in the moment of truth when the reps need it.
This is so game changing. And content management system, learning management systems have been there for 30, 40 years. But we've never had the ability to actually activate that content specifically in a way that contextual, relevant, and personalized for that conversation with that person at that moment of truth to enable the sales rep and the account manager to really drive the conversation forward and winning the hearts and minds of that customer, that prospect at every touch point. And now we do, right? A solution like GTM Buddy now becomes a system that can be used to totally transform the sales experience and the buying experience. And I think that definitely will be absolutely game changing. You've been talking to your own customers and prospects. What have you seen in terms of actual outcomes? What have your customers been able to achieve by leveraging GTM Buddy?
So it's primarily around the competency uplift. It would be easy for me to say, because of GTM Buddy, people have won more deals, the deal cycles have shortened. This is what every company out there in sales tech, they all talk about the outcomes. You talk to Zoom Info, they would say that your win rate would go up. You're going to win bigger deals. Your deal cycles are going to shorten. You talk to Outreach, they would tell you the same thing. Talk to Gong, they would tell you the same thing. So yes, those are important goals, and companies exist to deliver those outcomes. But those are the end outcomes. The question is, what's the path to get to those outcomes? And by just talking about the outcomes, they don't become real. What we deliver is a competency uplift. If you identify that, we are able to even contribute towards that analysis in terms of win-loss analysis and what are the gaps that the team has. And we deliver on competency uplift. That competency uplift in terms of objection handling, in terms of discovery quality. Those are direct leading indicators qualifying the right kind of deals. I'm uncovering the information that I should have uncovered early in the cycle. That leads to an outcome of improving the win rate. Can I say that GTM Buddy directly improves the win rate? No. But I help you improve the quality of discovery calls. How important is it to you as a company? Are you qualifying the wrong kind of deals, or you're qualifying without the information being collected early on in the cycle? And are you working on the critical areas such as objection handling that you're able to up level? So competency uplift is what is the most significant value delivery that we see.
I very much like the way that you position this, because it's true in general, and now even more so with AI. Everybody tends to say the same thing all the time. And so as a buyer of technology, it's becoming very difficult to make a choice because everybody copies everybody else. The word AI is injected into everything. And ultimately, everybody promises that you're going to sign more deals with higher deal sizes in a shorter period of time, and everything gets commoditized very, very quickly. So what you said is all true. However, how do you get there is where the differentiation is. And that's what you pointed out in terms of the competency uplift being the core differentiator of GTM Buddy as to the how do you achieve the outcome to make it stickier and more predictable?
A competency uplift is one critical outcome. The second is about what we call revenue capacity. So revenue capacity is about, if I'm a rep, how many deals can I humanly work and work them well becomes a question. That directly goes into the current movement towards doing more with less. Every company is being challenged with that. But doing more with less, does it mean that I'm going to overwork my current people, so I'll not hire people, but have them do more work? Is that it? Or is it about productivity gain, where I'm going to help them write their email? Is that it? Or are we able to up level the quality of the work that they do with an intelligent assistant by their side, which increases the capacity of how much they can take on? The revenue capacity problem is another critical lever that we solve for. Because, for example, I gave you an example about the account research and people research and so on. That is something that we expect our reps to do. A lot of people don't do. But doing that helps in terms of the quality of the conversation at one level. And it also saves time. And it helps me in terms of building that relationship, and the deal movement becomes faster. And if I'm doing that continually, I'm getting the rep to adopt the sales process. All of this happening seamlessly in the flow. then you're looking at a world where doing more with less or the revenue capacity starts getting unlocked.
That's very well said. As I relate what you said to the purpose of holistic selling, there's two elements of it. One is obviously aligning and synchronization. All the functions, all the strategies, all the tactics of the organization have to be aligned and synchronized to empower the frontline team members to deliver those extraordinary experiences and outcomes to the customers and prospects. The second one is removal of complexity. Make it simpler for people to do their jobs. And clearly, GTM Buddy removes complexity. And by removing complexity, allows them to do more with less and speeds up the velocity of the work. If it took you 3 or 4 hours to be ready for a sales call in the past, and now that information is served up to you at the moment of truth, where now it takes minutes to do something that used to take hours, you are going to be more productive, and that complexity would be removed from your workflows, therefore allowing you to do more with less. If we enable the frontline team members to do more with less by creating alignment and synchronization and removing complexity and making it easier for them to do a great job, can you imagine how transformative this is going to be for the frontline team members and how much more energy and joy they will have in communicating with their customers and prospects to deliver those outcomes and experiences that will delight those personas. So I think you're exactly at the right place at the right time, on the right track to transform the industry with GTM Buddies.
Thank you so much, Bernard. Really appreciate it.
So to summarize the conversation today, clearly, this is about transforming the experience that the frontline team members will deliver to customers and prospects at every touch point by making sure that if they leverage a tool like GTM Buddy, all the information needed for them to create a personalized, contextual, relevant experience with the customers and prospects get delivered to them at that moment of truth. Not only that, that's pre-call, but during the call also enables them to tap into the intelligence of the system to ensure that they can handle questions and objections. And then what you said after the call, I think is really important. Not only giving them at a moment notice after the call, all the coaching they need to understand how they could have conducted that call better and how they can self-improve, but also providing the up-leveling competency through coaching sessions that takes into account the actual content of the conversations and do so based on data that enables them to get better over time. So very well done, and look forward to continuing to see the progress that GTM Buddy is going to make in the marketplace. Now, if you had one word, one call to action for the audience today, what would you like the audience to take away from this conversation today, Sreedhar?
I would say be deliberate and thoughtful in terms of applying AI in your GTM motions. I know AI is talked about, there's a lot of hype about it. There are a lot of experiments that are being run at many, many companies, but it is extremely important to actualize that movement in terms of for a concrete business problem statement that you have in revenue activation, revenue enablement, and solving for that is mission critical. And all of us today are continually learning, given the pace at which things are changing. That would be my advice, and I'm doing the same in terms of, even though I'm a builder in AI space, every week I'm learning new things. I've never seen this rate of change before in my life.
Very true. Continuous learning is key to self-improvement. So very well said, Sreedhar, and very much looking forward to continuing to read the achievements of GTM Buddy going forward. So thanks again for being on the podcast with me today, and very much looking forward to talking to you again very soon.
Thank you so much for having me, Bernard. Truly enjoy the conversation. Thank you.